Dr. Evelyn Hart kept 2 fingers against Mira Vane's wrist, while the rain tapped softly against the tall windows of the royal healer's room. "Again," Evelyn said. Mira inhaled through her nose as another tightening passed low across her abdomen. It was not unbearable, but it was stronger than the ones she had felt the night before. Evelyn watched the second hand on her silver pocket watch. 38 weeks, she murmured. "And your son is becoming impatient." Mira rested one hand over the hard curve of her belly. The baby shifted beneath her palm. "How impatient?" "Enough that I don't want you alone tonight." Evelyn closed the medical file and pushed it across the table. Mira glanced toward the clock. Nearly midnight. Darius is still in council. Evelyn's mouth tightened. He should be with his pregnant wife. Mira gave her a tired look. He is also the Alpha King, and apparently kings cannot receive messages. That earned the faintest breath of a laugh from Mira. She stood carefully, one hand braced against the table until her balance settled. "I'll tell him myself." Evelyn looked as if she wanted to argue, then stopped. "Take the file. If the contractions become regular, you come straight back." Mira tucked the folder beneath her arm. The top page bore Evelyn's handwriting. 38 weeks. Early labor risk. Mira stared at those words for a second, then smiled down at her stomach. "Your father is going to panic." The child kicked once. Mira had no idea how cruel that sentence would sound 20 minutes later. The council chamber was empty when she reached the royal wing. Candles had burned low along the corridor, leaving the stone walls washed in weak amber light. The scent of cedar told her Darius had been there recently. Then she heard a woman laugh. Soft, private. Mira stopped. The sound had come from the council rest chamber. Vesper Ashbourne had been attending political dinners for weeks, always seated too close to Darius, always laughing a little too warmly at jokes that were not funny. Mira had noticed. She had also chosen trust. Another sound came through the door. A man's voice. "Darius." Mira's fingers tightened around the medical file. She opened the door. For several seconds, nobody moved. One of Darius's boots lay beneath a chair. His shirt had been thrown across the carpet. Vesper's dark green gown was pooled near the bed, one sleeve twisted inside out, and Darius was beneath the sheets with her. The scent struck Mira harder than the sight. Cheddar. Vesper's perfume. Sweat. Mate. Wrong. Her bond burned across her chest so violently that she almost lost her footing. Darius sat upright. "Mira." Vesper pulled the sheet higher. Mira did not look at her. Her eyes stayed on her husband. Darius reached for his trousers. "Listen to me." "No." The word was quiet. He froze. Mira's sun shifted hard inside her, followed by another contraction. She pressed one hand beneath her belly. Darius saw it. His face changed. "Are you hurt?" Mira almost laughed. Instead, she lifted the medical file. "I came to tell you something." His eyes dropped to it, then back to her. "Mira, this isn't..." "What?" Her voice remained level. "A bed?" His jaw flexed. Vesper sat straighter. "You knew things had changed between you." Mira finally looked at her. "No. I knew you wanted them to." Vesper's cheeks flushed. Darius stepped out of bed and pulled on his trousers. "That's enough." Mira studied him. 7 years. 7 years of standing beside him through border wars, council revolts, food shortages, assassination attempts. She had expected many things from marriage to a king. This had never been one of them. Darius moved closer. "We can talk about this privately." "We are private." He flinched. Vesper's voice came from behind him. "Then tell Heir." Darius turned. Vesper swallowed, but continued. "If you still want her, say it." The room seemed to contract around them. Mira did not ask him to choose. She refused to give either of them that humiliation. But Darius looked at Vesper, then at Mira. His shame hardened into something colder. Defensive. Proud. "I choose her." Mira felt the bond tear somewhere inside her. Not break. Not yet. But tear. Her fingers crushed one corner of the medical file. Darius seemed to regret the words the instant they left him. "Mira." She closed the folder. "Then live with your choice." She turned. He caught her wrist. "Mira, stop." She looked down at his hand. Darius released her. She walked out without another word. Only when the door closed behind her did her breathing change. One hand went to the wall. The other protected her stomach. Another contraction passed. Stronger. She shut her eyes until it ended. Then Mira straightened. She did not return to the royal bedroom. She did not go to the nursery. She walked toward the oldest staircase in Crown Spire, toward the sealed archives beneath the Eastern Tower, because 7 years earlier, while learning every law a royal Luna was expected to obey, Mira had found one law an Alpha King could not override, and tonight, she finally had reason to use it. Before 4 in the morning, Mira pressed the Moonbirth Seal into black wax and suspended the Alpha King's legal authority over both his wife and his unborn heir. The wax was still warm when Mira lifted the Moonbirth Seal. A black crescent remained pressed into the parchment. Dr. Evelyn Hart stood across the archive table, her face pale beneath the candlelight. "This suspends his authority until sunrise," she said. "If you cross Crownfang's border before then, maternal sanctuary becomes absolute." Mira folded the writ carefully. "And if I don't?" Evelyn hesitated. "Darius can challenge it before the council wakes." Mira glanced at the clock mounted above the archive door. 2:17. Less than 4 hours until sunrise. Another contraction tightened across her abdomen. She gripped the edge of the table until it passed. Evelyn stepped around the desk. "You should be in a healer's bed. I should have been in my husband's bed." The words escaped before Mira could stop them. Neither woman spoke. Mira looked away first. "Sorry. Don't apologize for bleeding where someone cut you." Mira placed the sanctuary writ beside her medical file and slid both into a leather satchel. "I need clothes. And a carriage." "No carriage. Too visible." "Mira. He knows every royal vehicle." Evelyn's jaw tightened. She knew Mira was right. The royal Luna left the archives through a narrow stairwell and entered the private wing from behind an old tapestry. She could hear movement elsewhere in the palace now. Doors opening, boots on stone. Darius had begun looking for her. Mira entered the nursery. Moonlight spilled across the room. The cradle stood beside the window. Darius had built it himself during one unusually quiet week between council sessions. The wood was dark ash, polished smooth, with tiny wolves carved around the rails. He had cut his thumb while carving one. Mira remembered laughing when he cursed. She remembered kissing the blood from his skin. Her breath caught. On the rocking chair lay a folded infant blanket. Blue-gray wool. One corner had been embroidered with a single name, Vane. Mira picked it up. For the first time that night, tears came. Not loudly. No collapse. No dramatic sobbing. Just 2 hot tears sliding down her face while she stood with one hand beneath the weight of her unborn son. "He wanted you," she whispered. The baby shifted. Mira closed her eyes. "At least I thought he did." Another tear fell onto the blanket. Then she folded it carefully and placed it back on the chair. She would not take it. Her son would not begin his life wrapped in a name that had just been used to humiliate his mother. Mira crossed into the dressing room. She ignored the velvet gowns, royal jewels, ceremonial cloaks, and silver crowns stored behind glass. Instead, she packed 2 plain dresses, wool trousers, underclothes, boots, and a heavy traveling coat. From the bottom drawer, she removed a tiny white shirt she had bought in secret from a village seamstress. No crest, no royal embroidery, just soft cotton. That went into the satchel. So did her personal money. Nothing from the crown treasury. Nothing Darius could claim she stole. When she reached the bedroom, the mate bond pulled violently. Mira doubled over. Pain knifed beneath her ribs. For one terrible second, she smelled cedar so strongly she thought Darius was behind her. He wasn't. The bond was reacting to distance. Or betrayal. Maybe both. Mira breathed slowly through clenched teeth. She could feel him somewhere in the palace, agitated, calling for guards. Her wolf pressed against her consciousness, confused by the separation from its mate. Go back. The instinct was ancient, biological, humiliating. Mira gripped the bedpost. No. The word came out as a whisper. Her body could miss him. Her wolf could mourn him. Neither would make the decision. Mira removed the royal mate seal from the chain around her neck. She placed it in the center of Darius's desk. No letter. No explanation. He had already heard everything she intended to say. By the time Mira reached the Eastern Servants' corridor, Evelyn was waiting with a hooded cloak and a small tin. "For your scent." Mira opened it. Crushed winter mint, cedar ash, and bitterroot. "It won't hide you from a tracker for long," Evelyn said. "But rain will help." Outside, thunder rolled over Crown Spire. Mira rubbed the mixture across her wrists, throat, and coat collar. Evelyn handed her a second document. My medical certification. 38 weeks. Early labor risk. Signed and witnessed. Mira stared at her. If Darius finds out you helped me, he can be angry. He can remove you. Evelyn's expression did not change. I delivered him 36 years ago. I have survived his tantrums before. A small, unwilling laugh escaped Mira. It disappeared almost immediately. Footsteps echoed at the far end of the corridor. Both women froze. A guard's voice called from above. Search the east wing. Evelyn grabbed Mira's arm. Go. Mira pulled up her hood. The service tunnel was narrower than she remembered. Dust coated the walls. Cold water dripped from the ceiling. Each step downward pressed the baby painfully against her pelvis. Halfway through, a contraction struck. Mira stopped. Her palm flattened against wet stone. She counted through it. 10, 20, 30 seconds. Her breath trembled. Then the pain released. She kept walking. At the final iron door, she looked back once. Nothing but darkness. No palace. No Darius. No cradle. Mira pushed the door open. Rain struck her face. The eastern forest waited beyond the palace wall. Far above, Crown Spire's tower clock began to ring. 3 times. 3 in the morning. Mira stepped into the storm. She had less than 3 hours to reach the border. Behind her, somewhere inside the palace, a wolf roared with enough force to shake birds from the trees. Darius had found the empty bedroom. Mira pulled the cloak tighter around her belly and started walking faster. When the first gray line of morning appeared behind the mountains, Mira still had 6 miles left before Crown Fang's border. The rain had thinned to a cold mist by the time Mira reached the old Healer transport road. 6 miles. She repeated the number in her head because thinking about distance was easier than thinking about Darius. The road cut through dense pine, narrow enough that royal patrol horses rarely used it. Years ago, Mira had redirected Healer traffic here during a border fever outbreak. She knew every bend, every drainage ditch, every place the forest opened toward the eastern ridge. Her knowledge had kept Crown Fang alive once. Tonight, it might keep her free. A contraction tightened low across her abdomen. Mira slowed, one hand pressing beneath the curve of her stomach. Not yet, she whispered. Elias answered with a hard movement beneath her ribs. She waited for the pressure to ease, then kept walking. Wintermint and bitterroot stung her nose from the scent mixture Evelyn had given her. Rain had weakened it, but enough remained to blur her trail. Behind her, Crown Spire's wolves began to howl. Not the ordinary calls of patrols. A royal summons. Darius was searching. Inside the palace, Alpha King Darius Vane stood in the center of their bedroom, holding the royal mate seal Mira had left on his desk. He had stopped shouting. That frightened Beta Owen Cross more than rage would have. Find her, Darius said. Owen kept his voice careful. The east wing is being searched. She is 38 weeks pregnant. I know. Darius looked toward the untouched side of the bed. The medical file copy lay open beside him. Early labor risk. His eyes kept returning to those 3 words. She wouldn't cross the border like this. Owen said nothing. Darius looked up. What? You want my opinion? I want her found. Owen's jaw tightened. She watched you choose another woman 3 hours ago. Darius's wolf surged behind his eyes. Be careful. Owen lowered his gaze, but not before Darius saw the answer there. Mira might do far more than cross a border. Darius reached for the pack link. Mira. The command carried through the bond with enough force to make lesser wolves drop to their knees. Return to Crown Spire. In the eastern forest, Mira stopped so abruptly that mud splashed around her boots. The Alpha command struck her skull. For 1 second, instinct screamed at her to turn around. Her wolf recoiled. Her mate was calling. Her king was ordering. Then the sanctuary writ inside her satchel heated against her side. The command broke, not weakened. Broke. Mira sucked in a breath. Darius tried again. Mira, come home. The second command dissolved before it could settle into her bones. Something inside her shifted. Not the bond. Something more important. Fear. For 7 years, Darius's alpha authority had been part of the air she breathed. Even when he never used it against her, she had known it existed. Now it could not reach her. Mira placed a hand over her son. No. In Crown Spire, Darius staggered. Owen caught his arm. What happened? Darius stared into nothing. She blocked me. Owen's expression changed. No. The law blocked you. Darius turned slowly. What law? Owen did not answer. He did not need to. The realization had already reached the king. Maternal sanctuary. Darius looked down at the medical file again. For the first time that night, anger gave way to something colder. Fear. Mira reached the eastern border 40 minutes later. 2 stone pillars stood beneath dripping branches, carved with the wolf crest of Crown Fang. A tracker stepped from behind one. Jace Mercer. She knew him. He had escorted her through flood zones 2 winters before. His face tightened when he saw her condition. Luna. Not tonight. His eyes dropped to the satchel. King's order says no one crosses. Mira removed the folded sanctuary writ. Jace did not take it immediately. Please don't make me choose between you and my Alpha. You don't have to. She held the parchment toward him. Read the seal. Jace finally looked, his face drained of color. Moonbirth Seal. Black wax. Witnessed medical certification. He stepped back. If I let you pass, you are obeying Crown Fang law. A howl erupted somewhere behind them. Closer now. Jace looked toward the trees. They're coming fast. Mira's breathing sharpened. The eastern sky had begun to pale. She stepped toward the border marker. Another contraction hit. This one stole her breath. Her knees bent. Jace reached for her, then stopped before touching her. Mira? She gripped the stone pillar. Pain rolled through her abdomen, stronger than before, tightening around her spine. She counted. 30 seconds. 40. 50. The pressure finally eased. Jace stared at her. You're in labor. No. That is... Mira straightened. Behind them, branches snapped. Royal trackers. Too close. Jace moved aside. Go. Mira crossed between the pillars. The moment her boot touched Covenant soil, something warm spread from the sanctuary writ against her side. The law had recognized the crossing. Maternal sanctuary was complete. A royal howl split the forest behind her. Mira did not turn around. She took 3 more steps. Then another contraction tore through her. Harder. Deeper. Her legs failed. Mira dropped to one knee in wet grass, one hand catching herself against the ground. Jace stood frozen on the Crown Fang side of the stones. He could not legally cross after her. Mira. She tried to answer. Another wave of pain swallowed the words. Far ahead, movement stirred between the trees. Not Crown Fang wolves. Different scent. Different territory. Mira lifted her head. 3 unfamiliar wolves emerged from the mist, and the largest one was already shifting. Mira had escaped her husband's command, but her son had chosen the exact moment she entered foreign territory to begin forcing his way into the world. The largest wolf shifted before Mira could force herself upright. Bone rolled beneath wet fur. Shoulders widened. A man emerged from the mist in dark patrol clothes, barefoot in the grass, rain shining across his forearms. He did not rush toward her. That was the first thing Mira noticed. The second was the Covenant insignia stitched over his chest. Name, he said. Mira Vane. His expression hardened. Royal Luna of Crown Fang? Not anymore. Another contraction pulled tight around her abdomen. Mira bent forward, breath catching through her teeth. The patrol leader watched her carefully. Captain Rowan Vale, he said. Covenant border guard. 2 other wolves shifted behind him. Neither approached. Rowan looked past Mira toward the stone markers separating Crown Fang from Covenant land. Royal trackers had appeared on the opposite side. Jace stood between them and the border. One of the newcomers shouted, By order of Alpha King Darius Vane, return the Luna. Rowan's eyes moved to Mira. Do they have claim? Mira pulled the sanctuary writ from her satchel. Her fingers shook once before she steadied them. Not anymore. Rowan took the parchment. He read the first lines, then looked at the black wax. Moonbirth Seal. Witnessed before sunrise. You crossed at? 5:43. Jace called from across the line. I witnessed the crossing. Rowan continued reading. Mira could feel the Crown Fang trackers staring at her. Not as their Luna. As a problem. The contraction finally released. Rowan folded the writ. I need independent verification. One of the Crown Fang men stepped forward. She is in labor. You cannot keep her out here. Mira almost laughed at the sudden concern. Rowan ignored him. To touch her without recognition of the sanctuary would violate Covenant neutrality. Mira met his eyes. Section 8. His brow lifted. She continued. Maternal petitioners carrying a verified royal heir are not required to surrender bodily custody while their documents are reviewed. Rowan studied her for a beat. You memorized it. I helped negotiate the amendment. That changed something in his face. Not warmth. Respect, perhaps. Bring the covered wagon. The Crownfang tracker growled. Captain. Rowan turned toward the border. One more step across that stone and this stops being a family dispute. No one moved. Mira was placed in a narrow patrol wagon padded with wool blankets. The road toward the nearest healer outpost wound between black pines and steep hills. Every rut sent pain through her lower back. She counted the intervals between contractions. Too close. Too regular. Still, when the wagon stopped 20 minutes later, it was not because of her. A line of people blocked the road. Families. Old wolves. Children wrapped in blankets. 2 wagons with broken wheels stood tilted in the mud. Rowan cursed under his breath. What happened? A gray-haired man stepped forward. Northern Supply Road closed overnight. Crownfang checkpoint turned everyone back. We've been walking since dark. Mira lifted her head. From Hollow Creek? The man looked surprised. Yes. How many? 43. Mira's eyes went to the children. One girl was coughing so hard her small body folded around itself. Any healer? Lost our medicine wagon near Red Quarry. Rowan looked toward Mira. You know this road. I built the emergency route. You're supposed to be the emergency. So are they. He exhaled sharply. The Covenant healer outpost was small. By the time Mira reached it, every bed had been taken. The air smelled of antiseptic herbs, damp wool, and fever sweat. A young healer tried to guide Mira toward the only private room. Mira stopped when she saw 2 children sharing a cot outside it. What medicines are short? The healer blinked. Fever bark, lung rot, infant tonic. Storage? Nearly empty. Mira lowered herself carefully onto a bench. Get me a map. Rowan stared at her. You need to lie down. I can lie down after those children can breathe. A map was spread over a wooden table. Mira traced Hollow Creek, Red Quarry, then an old logging path north of the ridge. There. Rowan frowned. That road was abandoned. Because the bridge washed out 4 years ago. Exactly. The bridge was rebuilt for healer carts. Crownfang never added it back to military maps. Rowan looked at her. You're certain? I signed the restoration order. He called for 2 riders. Check it. Mira leaned back as another contraction hit. This one lasted longer. When it passed, warmth spread beneath her. She looked down. A faint streak of blood marked the pale fabric of her dress. The young healer saw it too. Her face changed. We need you in the back room now. Mira nodded once. No argument this time. An hour later, the riders returned. The road was open. More importantly, they had found the missing medicine wagon stuck behind a fallen tree. Rowan entered the healer room, while Mira sat propped against pillows, one hand over her belly. The medicine is coming. Good. He studied her. You could have kept that information to yourself. Mira looked toward the coughing children beyond the curtain. I could have. A woman nearby, holding a feverish toddler, glanced toward Mira. Is your husband coming? The room seemed to narrow. Mira's hand stopped moving over her stomach. No. Just one word. No explanation. No apology. Rowan looked away first. Outside, horses suddenly thundered into the yard. Not patrol riders. Too many. The door opened. A Covenant guard stepped inside, rain dripping from his cloak. Captain, Greyhaven sent an escort. Rowan straightened. For Heir? The guard nodded. He heard who crossed the border. Mira's pulse changed. Rowan looked back at her. High Alpha Thorn does not usually leave Greyhaven for border petitions. The healer adjusted Mira's blanket. Then perhaps tonight is unusual. Heavy footsteps sounded in the corridor. Measured. Unhurried. The room quieted before the man even reached the doorway. When Lucien Thorn stepped inside, his eyes went straight to Mira, and he said, 3 years ago, it stole half a river from me with 1 paragraph of treaty law. Lucien Thorn stood in the doorway, as if the room had been built around him. He was taller than Mira remembered, broad across the shoulders, dressed in a dark traveling coat with rain still beading along the collar. His hair was damp, pushed back carelessly, and his eyes carried the same unreadable steadiness she remembered from treaty negotiations. Mira remained propped against the healer's pillows. You signed the river agreement, Lucien said. You signed it first. You rewrote Section 12 after midnight. You should have read the revision. A corner of his mouth moved. Not quite a smile. Captain Rowan Vale cleared his throat. High Alpha, her sanctuary writ is valid. Lucien's gaze dropped to the black wax seal on the table. And the child? Royal blood confirmed by scent and preliminary mark response. Mira's jaw tightened. He has a name before he has a title. Lucien looked back at her. Good. No sympathy. No possessive concern. Just acknowledgement. It unsettled her more than pity would have. Lucien stepped closer to the table and read the writ himself. Crown Fang has already sent 2 formal demands. Mira's fingers curled slightly over the blanket. Demands for me? For the heir. The contraction came without warning. Mira sucked in a breath and leaned forward. The healer beside her immediately checked the clock. Lucien stopped speaking. Mira counted through clenched teeth. 20 seconds. 30. 47. When the pressure eased, she leaned back, breathing hard. Lucien looked at the healer. How close? Closer than she wants to admit. Mira opened her eyes. I am sitting right here. The healer ignored her. Her contractions are becoming regular. Lucien folded the sanctuary writ. You stay under covenant protection until the law says otherwise. Mira watched him carefully. You're not doing this for me. No. Good. His eyes narrowed slightly. Most people prefer gratitude. Most people aren't 38 weeks pregnant after crossing a border before sunrise. That time, Lucien did smile. Only briefly. Then another pain struck. Stronger. Mira gripped the sheets. The healer moved quickly. Her water broke. The room changed instantly. Rowan stepped back. Lucien moved toward the door. Mira noticed. You're leaving? You need a healer, not an alpha. For some reason, that answer steadied her. Hours blurred after that. The world narrowed to breath, pressure, heat, and pain. Rain hammered the healer house roof. Mira bit down on a folded cloth during the worst contractions, refusing to scream until she no longer had the strength to care who heard. Outside the room, Lucien stood with Rowan and 3 Covenant guards. A Crown Fang delegation had arrived at the border road. They carried Darius's seal. They're demanding immediate access, Rowan said. Lucien did not look toward the gate. Denied. They say the Alpha King has paternal rights, not under an active Moonbirth sanctuary. They're threatening a formal challenge. Then they can file one after the child is born. A muffled cry came from behind the healer room door. Lucien's expression hardened. Until then, no Crown Fang wolf crosses that threshold. Inside, Mira's hands trembled. I can't, she gasped. Dr. Evelyn was not there. Darius was not there. No familiar voice. No familiar hand. Only the Covenant healer, Mara Finch, bracing Mira's shoulder. Yes, you can. Mira shook her head once. Pain tore through her again. For one brief second, she saw the nursery, the cradle, Darius kneeling beside it, carving tiny wolves into dark ash wood. Her throat closed. Then Mara's voice cut through the memory. Again, Mira. Mira pushed. The next sound was not hers. A newborn's cry filled the room. Sharp, alive. Mira collapsed back against the pillows. Everything inside her went still. Mara lifted the baby carefully. A boy. Mira began crying before she even realized it. Not from weakness, not from grief. Relief. Pure, shaking relief. They placed him against her chest. Warm skin, dark hair, tiny clenched fists. Mira touched his cheek with one finger. Hello. His crying softened. Mara smiled. He knows you. Mira closed her eyes and pressed her lips to his forehead. For the first time since opening that bedroom door, she felt something stronger than betrayal. Love without negotiation. A little later, while Mira rested, Mara prepared the birth record. Name? Elias. Elias Vane? Mira's eyes opened. The room went quiet. She looked down at her sleeping son. No. Mara waited. Mira touched the small crescent-shaped birthmark beneath Elias's collarbone. Royal blood. Undeniable. Still, blood did not get to choose everything. Elias Hale. Mara wrote it down. Outside, Lucien received the sealed confirmation minutes later. Male heir. Healthy. Royal blood mark verified. Mother stable. He signed as Covenant witness. Then he handed the notice to a waiting courier. By sunset, the message reached Crownspire. Darius was in the council chamber when Owen Cross placed the document before him. The Alpha King read the first line, then the second. His face lost all color. Elias Hale. His son had been born. Alive. Safe. Without him. Darius's eyes dropped to the final notation. Father absent under lawful restriction. For several seconds, nobody in the chamber moved. Then Darius sat down slowly. The king who commanded 16 packs stared at 4 words he had no power to erase. His son had entered the world carrying royal blood and a name that did not belong to him. 3 weeks after Elias was born, Mira sat at a long oak table in Greyhaven, with her son sleeping against her chest. He had developed the habit of gripping the edge of her blouse whenever he slept, as if even unconscious he wanted proof that she was still there. Mira had not complained. Outside the Covenant Administrative Hall, snow pressed white against the windows. Inside, the room smelled of ink, cedar shelves, and coffee that had gone cold an hour ago. Lucian dropped 3 leather-bound ledgers onto the table. "You asked for supply records." Mira looked at the stack. "I asked for 3 months. That is 3 months. For the entire territory." Lucian pulled out the chair opposite her. "You sound disappointed. I was hoping you were better organized." His eyebrow lifted. Mira opened the first ledger. Lucian had expected her to skim. She did not. For nearly 40 minutes, she read in complete silence, one hand occasionally adjusting the blanket around Elias, while the other moved down columns of grain shipments, healer allocations, winter fuel, and transport fees. Lucian watched her once, then twice. Finally he said, "You gave birth 22 days ago. I remember. You should be sleeping. So should you. I'm not recovering from childbirth." "No. You're recovering from poor accounting." That earned a low breath that might have been a laugh. Mira turned another page, then stopped. "Who approves Northern Corridor transfers?" Lucian's expression changed. "Finance steward first, quartermaster second." "Both signatures?" "Yes." Mira slid the ledger toward him. "Then either both men have developed identical handwriting, or someone is forging one of them." Lucian leaned forward. 2 authorization marks sat beneath a shipment entry. Almost identical. Almost. He looked up. "You saw that from 1 page?" "I saw it from 6. Mira pulled the second ledger closer. "There are 17 shipments marked as delivered to eastern storehouses, but the consumption records don't show them arriving." Lucian's jaw tightened. "How much?" "Enough grain to feed 200 wolves for 6 weeks. The humor disappeared from the room. Lucian called for Captain Rowan. Within 10 minutes, the 3 of them were standing over Greyhaven's supply map. Mira pointed toward a narrow road running beneath the northern ridge. "Your losses concentrate here." Rowan frowned. "That route has been stable for years. Stable routes are easier to exploit." Lucian folded his arms. "What would you do?" Mira looked at him. "Is this a test?" "Yes." "Good." She moved 3 marker stones. "Stop sending full caravans through Northern Corridor. Split them. 1/3 by river, 1/3 through healer roads, 1/3 through the old quarry route." Rowan shook his head. "The quarry adds 2 days. It also makes theft harder to predict. And the villages waiting for grain?" Mira moved another marker. "Release emergency reserves from Westbridge today. Replace them with the river shipment when it arrives." Lucian stared at the map. "That leaves Westbridge exposed. For 48 hours. If the river freezes." "It won't." "You sound certain." Mira glanced toward the window. "Temperature has risen 3 degrees since yesterday. Snow is wet, not powder. The river will hold." Rowan looked at Lucian. Lucian said, "Do it." The orders went out before noon. By evening, Greyhaven received confirmation that the first redirected caravan had arrived safely. The missing grain problem did not disappear, but the bleeding stopped. Lucian found Mira later in the records room, Elias asleep in a sling against her chest. "You were right." She did not look up. "That sounded painful." "I survived." Mira smiled faintly. Then her expression sharpened. "There's something else." She pulled 1 ledger toward him. 3 payments had been marked as cross-border stabilization fees. Same amount. Same authorization code. 3 different dates. Lucian read the destinations. Iron Vale. His face hardened. Vesper's pack. "Yes. You think this connects to Darius?" Mira was quiet. The name still hurt. "Not like before, but enough. I think it connects to someone who wanted Crown Fang and Covenant supply systems disrupted at the same time." Lucian studied Heir. "You could ignore this." "No." "Why?" "Because Greyhaven is feeding refugees displaced by those disruptions. That is not Crownfang. No. Mira looked down at Elias. It is still people. Lucien said nothing for a moment. Then he leaned one hip against the table. Do you know what Darius lost? Mira's shoulders stiffened. I'm not interested. He didn't lose a wife. She looked at him. Lucien tapped the ledger. He lost an administration. Mira's mouth tightened. I was not his administration. No. Lucien's gaze dropped briefly to Elias, then back to her. You were the part he never bothered to measure because it was always working. The words landed harder than Mira expected. For years, she had taken pride in making problems disappear before Darius saw them. Food shortages, healer disputes, pack arguments, trade failures. She had mistaken invisibility for competence, and perhaps so had he. Elias stirred. Mira touched his back. I won't fix Crownfang for him. I didn't ask you to. I mean it. Lucien's voice stayed calm. Then don't. That answer mattered. No challenge. No hidden demand. Just permission she had not realized she still needed to give herself. Mira returned to the ledger. She followed the Iron Veil payments backward through authorization numbers and transport codes. Then she froze. Lucien saw it immediately. What? Mira turned the page. Another transfer. Then another. Her pulse slowed. The first payment had been approved 11 days before she caught Darius with Vesper. The second, 6 days before. The third. Mira stared at the date. The night before. Lucien came around the table. Before what? Mira's fingers rested over the number. Before the bed. Before I choose her. Before she disappeared. She looked up. This didn't start after I left. Lucien's expression hardened. No. Mira closed the ledger. For the first time, she understood that the affair might have been only one piece of something larger. But one truth remained untouched. Whatever trap had been built around Darius, he had still chosen to step inside it. Mira placed her finger over 3 identical payments to Iron Veil, all authorized before the night Darius chose Vesper. Crown Spire had begun to smell different. Not ruined. Not yet. But strained. The palace kitchens were burning cheaper wood. 2 chandeliers in the east corridor had gone dark because lamp oil shipments were late. Healer carts waited longer at the gates. Courtiers had stopped speaking loudly near the council chamber. Small failures. The kind Mira used to catch before anyone noticed. Darius noticed them now. He stood at the head of the council table while 6 Alpha representatives argued over winter medicine, grain shortages, and a patrol station that had gone 3 days without replacement boots. Vesper sat in Mira's former chair. The sight had stopped exciting her. Now it made her nervous. The northern healers can wait until next week, she said. Military stores should come first. Beta Owen Cross looked up sharply. Frost lung is spreading through 2 northern villages. Vesper's fingers tightened around the quill. We cannot weaken border defense for cough syrup. It isn't cough syrup. Darius rubbed a hand over his face. How much medicine do they need? Owen slid a report forward. 2 crates of fever bark, 1 of lung root, infant tonic, and clean gauze. Darius glanced toward Vesper. You signed the allocation yesterday. She straightened. I did. Owen's jaw hardened. You sent it south. Silence settled over the table. Vesper blinked. What? You marked Greywatch Station instead of Greybrook Healer House. They sound almost identical. They are 90 miles apart. Vesper's cheeks colored. Darius picked up the order. Mira would never have made that mistake. The thought came so quickly he hated himself for it. Vesper reached for the paper. It can be corrected. Owen leaned back. It would have been corrected before anyone saw it if Mira were here. Darius's head snapped toward him. Enough. Owen did not lower his eyes. No, my king. The council went still. Darius rose slowly. Owen continued. You keep asking why nothing works the way it did. His voice remained controlled. Because before Mira was doing it. The words hit harder than any challenge. Darius looked around the table. No one disagreed. Vesper pushed back her chair. I will not sit here while everyone compares me to a woman who abandoned this kingdom. Darius's wolf surged. She did not abandon it. Vesper stared at him. For one raw second, he heard his own words. He had defended Mira. Too late. Far too late. Vesper stood. She left you. Darius looked at the chair beneath her. No. His voice lowered. I gave her a reason to. No one spoke after that. The meeting ended without ceremony. Darius walked alone to the royal nursery. He had started coming there after midnight. No guards. No attendant. No one watching. The cradle remained beside the window. dark ash wood, tiny carved wolves along the rails. He ran one thumb over the wolf whose ear he had ruined while carving. Mira had laughed for 10 straight minutes. He had pretended to be offended. Now the room gave the memory back without kindness. A folded blanket still rested on the rocking chair. Vane stitched into one corner. Darius sat beside it. On the table lay the official Covenant birth record Owen had obtained. He had read it enough times to know every line. Elias Hale. Male. Healthy. Royal blood mark verified. Mother. Mira Hale. Father. Darius Vane. Father attendance. Abson. Darius stared at that word until the letters blurred. A king could order armies across mountains, could condemn traitors, could close borders, yet he had missed the first breath of his own son because the law had determined Mira needed protection from him. His hand closed around the paper. A knock sounded. Owen entered. Darius did not turn. If this is another supply report, leave it. It isn't. Owen placed a sealed envelope on the nursery table. Iron Veil wax. Darius looked at it. Where did you get that? Royal Accounting Archives. The seal was already broken. Inside were transfer authorizations. Large payments. Private military accounts. One signature appeared repeatedly. Elder Malcolm Reeve. Another destination appeared beneath every transaction. Garrick Ashbourne. Vesper's father. Darius stood. What is this? I don't know yet. Owen pulled out another sheet. But the first payment happened before Mira left. Darius read the date. 11 days before. His stomach tightened. The second payment came 6 days before Mira found him with Vesper. The third came the previous night. Darius's pulse began to hammer. He left the nursery without another word. He found Vesper in her chambers before she could change for dinner. She looked up from the mirror. Darius. He threw the papers onto the vanity. What did your father buy? The color drained from her face. That was enough. Darius stepped closer. What did he buy? Vesper stood slowly. You think this excuses you? His expression hardened. I asked you a question, and I asked one first. Her voice shook, but she did not look away. My father wanted Mira removed from Crown Fang's political structure. Darius went still. He said her blood oaths were blocking Iron Veil expansion. You knew? I knew he wanted you closer to me. Darius's hands curled. Were there drugs? Vesper almost laughed. No. A spell? No. Did anyone compel me? Her eyes filled with something bitter. No. Darius looked away. For one desperate second, he had wanted another answer. Anything that might reduce what he had done. Vesper saw it, and she understood. My father opened the door, she said quietly. Darius looked back. You walked through it. She stepped toward him. And when you climbed into my bed, Darius, nobody was holding a knife to your throat. His jaw flexed. Vesper's eyes hardened. You want me to be the reason you betrayed her because that would hurt less. Darius said nothing. She smiled without warmth. But I'm not. Then she delivered the truth he could no longer escape. My father opened the door. You were the one who walked into my bed. Darius did not sleep that night. By sunrise, 3 Iron Veil accounts had been frozen. Elder Malcolm Reeve had been placed under guard, and Vesper had been confined to her chambers. It changed nothing. That was the worst part. Every new piece of evidence proved there had been a plan around him. None of it changed what he had done. At Greyhaven, Mira sat beside a narrow window with Elias asleep against her shoulder, while Lucien read the copy of the Iron Veil transfers. Snowlight washed the room pale. The payments began before you left Crownspire, he said. Mira nodded, and continued after. Lucien turned another page. This one funded private soldiers near the Northern Trade Road, which explains the missing caravans. And the refugee movement. Mira looked down at Elias. His cheek was warm against her collarbone. So this was never just about me. No. Lucien's voice stayed flat. It was about removing the person who kept the system connected. Mira's expression hardened. For one ugly second, anger rose sharp enough to taste. Not because Garrick had targeted her, because families had gone hungry to make the plan work. A knock sounded. Captain Rowan entered, carrying a sealed packet. From Crownspire. Lucien took it. Royal wax. Mira did not reach for it. Open it. Inside was Owen Cross's written testimony, copies of payment orders, and one additional statement. Vesper Ashbourne. Mira read it twice. No spell. No drugs. No compulsion. My father encouraged the relationship because he believed Mira's removal would destabilize the Crown Fang Oath network. Darius chose to continue the affair willingly. Mira's fingers stopped at the final sentence. Lucian watched her. You were wondering. No, he waited. Mira exhaled slowly. I was wondering whether the truth would try to make him innocent. And? It doesn't. She folded the statement. They built the opportunity. Her eyes remained on the paper. He made the choice. Lucian gave one small nod. No argument. No attempt to soften it. Mira appreciated that. Then Rowan placed another sheet on the table. This arrived separately. It was a military dispatch. Crown Fang scouts had identified Iron Veil companies moving south under the claim of protective deployment. Mira read the route. Her pulse changed. They're not protecting anything. Lucien came closer. They're moving toward Crown Spire. Through civilian territory. Yes. Mira stood too quickly. Elias steered. She adjusted him automatically. If Garrick enters the capital during an internal succession dispute, the council will fracture. Lucien's expression remained controlled. And Covenant can close its border. Mira looked at him. You want me to stay out of it. I want you to understand that it is no longer your responsibility to save Darius. It isn't. Then let Crown Fang deal with Crown Fang. Mira walked to the wall map. She traced Iron Veil's movement south. They'll cross Millhaven first. Lucian said nothing. 600 civilians, Mira continued. No fortified wall. One healer station. That is Crown Fang territory. They are still people. The words came out harder than she intended. Lucian studied her face. You think returning will drag you back into his life? Mira turned. No. I think part of you is afraid everyone else will think it does. That landed closer. Mira looked away. Lucian did not push. Finally, she said, if I go back, it will not be as his wife. Then don't go back as his wife. She looked at him. Lucian stepped beside the map. Go as Covenant envoy. Mira's brow tightened. You would authorize that? You found the Iron Veil connection. You would be involving Greyhaven. Iron Veil already involved Greyhaven when it stole our grain. Mira almost smiled. Almost. Then Rowan's hand went to the dagger at his belt. A noise came from the corridor. Fast footsteps. A guard burst through the door. Hi, Alpha. Lucian turned. What? We caught someone outside the nursery wing. Every muscle in Mira's body went rigid. Elias? Safe. She was already moving. Lucian followed. The prisoner was on his knees in the lower hall when they arrived. 2 guards held him by the shoulders. His coat had been stripped away. A thin blade lay on the floor beside him. Mira stopped. The man's face meant nothing to her. The insignia at his throat did. Crown Fang Royal Guard. Her stomach turned cold. Lucian crouched in front of him. Name. The man said nothing. Rowan grabbed the chain around his neck and tore it free. The royal crest hit the floor. Mira stared at it. That doesn't prove Darius sent him. Lucian glanced back at her. No. The prisoner finally laughed. A dry, nervous sound. You should ask who still controls the Royal Guard payroll. Mira's eyes narrowed. Garrick? The man's smile disappeared. That was answer enough. Lucien rose. Take him below. The guards dragged the prisoner away. Mira remained still. Elias began to fuss against her chest, disturbed by the tension. She lowered her face and kissed his hair. Her fear lasted exactly long enough to become useful. Then it hardened. Prepare the envoy papers. Lucien watched her. You're certain? Mira looked toward the Royal Guard insignia lying on the stone floor. They came for my son. Her voice was quiet. I'm done waiting for them to choose the battlefield. Lucien nodded once. By nightfall, Greyhaven began preparing a protected diplomatic escort for Crown Spire. And far to the south, Garrick Ashbourne learned that Mira Hale was no longer hiding behind sanctuary law. She was coming back with it. The first man sent to reach Elias wore Crown Fang's crest, but the order behind it led straight to the conspiracy waiting inside the capital. Crown Spire's great hall had never looked smaller to Mira. 16 pack banners hung from the rafters. Council members filled the stone benches. Royal guards lined the walls in formal black, though half of them now wore temporary Covenant oversight bands around one arm. Mira entered carrying Elias. Lucien walked 1 pace behind her. Not beside her. Not in front of her. Behind. The difference mattered. Whispers moved through the hall. Royal Luna. Former Luna. Royal Mother. Traitor. Victim. Mira heard all of it and answered none of it. At the far end of the chamber, Darius stood before the throne. He looked older, not by years, by consequences. His eyes found Elias first. Everything else disappeared from his face. Mira felt the mate bond pull weakly inside her chest. Pine, memory, nothing more. Darius stepped down from the dais. Mira. She stopped. His gaze dropped to the child in her arms. Elias was awake. One small fist pressed beneath his chin. Darius's breath broke. My son. He took another step. Mira moved back. One pace. That was all. Lucien did not move. Darius stopped anyway. The council noticed. So did Mira. Once, an entire kingdom had moved when Darius commanded. Now one woman's boundary held him more effectively than Alpha authority ever had. Elder Thomas Reed struck the ceremonial staff against the floor. This royal conduct trial is called to order. Mira approached the evidence table. The Moonbirth Seal came first, then the sanctuary writ, then Evelyn Hart's medical certification. 38 weeks pregnant, early labor risk. Mira placed each document down without looking at Darius. Dr. Evelyn stepped forward. I examined Mira Vane shortly before midnight on the night in question. Was she medically fit for emotional or physical distress? An elder asked. No woman at 38 weeks should be deliberately subjected to either. Darius lowered his eyes. Evelyn continued. She left my care, intending to tell her husband their son might arrive early. No one in the hall moved. The next evidence was Owen Cross's Royal War Ledger. He opened it before the council. 3 payments to Ironvale-controlled accounts were made before Mira's departure. Garrick Ashbourne stood behind the accused rail. You have no proof those accounts were mine. Owen slid forward copies of the authorization codes. We do now. A second ledger followed, then intercepted military orders, then names. Supply stations deliberately starved. Refugee routes pressured. Covenant caravans redirected. Each piece closed another door. Garrick's face remained controlled until Vesper entered. She wore no Luna colors, no jewelry, no royal insignia. For the first time since Mira had known her, Vesper looked ordinary. Elder Reed asked, Did your father instruct you to approach Alpha King Darius? Yes. A murmur rolled through the chamber. Did he instruct you to interfere with Mira's position? Yes. Was Alpha King Darius drugged? Vesper looked at him. No. Under spell? No. Compelled? No. Darius did not flinch. That hurt Mira more strangely than denial might have. He was finally standing inside the truth without trying to escape it. Vesper's voice trembled. My father created access. He encouraged the affair, but Darius chose it. Garrick slammed both palms against the rail. Enough. The hall erupted. Royal guards moved. Garrick snarled toward his daughter. You ungrateful little fool. Vesper's face went white. Mira watched something die behind her eyes. Perhaps the belief that she had ever been more than another tool. Elder Reed struck the floor again. Order. The final evidence came from the captured infiltrator at Greyhaven. His written confession named Garrick's paymaster. The order had been clear. Reach the royal heir before the trial. Force a custody crisis. Create grounds for Ironvale intervention. That ended it. The council withdrew for 23 minutes. When they returned, Garrick was stripped of military authority and charged with treason. Elder Malcolm Reeve was removed from the council. Vesper's Luna claim was voided. Then the chamber turned toward Darius, the part Mira had not prepared herself for. Elder Reed spoke slowly. Alpha King Darius Vane, your actions enabled a succession crisis, violated the royal mate oath, and exposed the heir to political danger. Darius accepted every word. Then he looked at Mira. May I speak to her? No private audience, Lucien said. Darius's jaw tightened. Mira glanced back. I can answer for myself. Lucien inclined his head. Darius stepped closer, though he kept the distance she had established. I don't expect forgiveness. Good. His eyes closed briefly. I need you to know I understand now. Mira's expression did not change. Understanding after the damage is still understanding. Hope flickered in his face. She finished. It is not restoration. Elder Reed cleared his throat. There remains one matter. An attendant approached carrying a velvet cushion. On it rested the Crownfang Luna circlet. Mira stared at it, the symbol of everything she had once worked to protect, everything she had once believed defined her. Elder Reed spoke. The council offers full restoration of your royal Luna title, authority, estate, and ceremonial rank. The hall inhaled as one. Darius looked at her. For the first time, There was no command in his eyes, only hope. Mira shifted Elias higher against her chest, then looked at the throne, at the circlet, at the man who had once made her believe losing him meant losing herself. She understood the offer perfectly. They thought they were giving her back what had been taken. They had not yet understood that she no longer wanted it. Mira looked at the empty Luna seat and said, "You still think I came back? Because I wanted my old life returned." Mira did not look at the Luna circlet for long. The silver caught the light from the high windows, polished and familiar. Once, she had worn it through winter councils, border funerals, harvest ceremonies, and nights when she had gone to bed too tired to remove the pins from her hair. Once, it had meant duty. Then it had meant humiliation. Now it meant almost nothing. Elder Thomas Reed waited. "The council's offer stands." Mira shifted Elias against her shoulder. "No." The word carried cleanly through the great hall. "A murmure." Darius closed his eyes. Mira continued, "I will not return as Royal Luna." Elder Reed studied her. "You would retain full authority." "I already have authority." That silenced the room. Lucian remained behind her, still giving her the space to stand alone. Mira looked toward the council. "I came because Garrick threatened civilians, because Greyhaven was attacked, and because my son was targeted." Her gaze moved briefly to Darius. "I did not come back for a marriage that ended the night my husband chose another woman." Darius took the blow without flinching. Garrick Ashbourne was sentenced before noon. Treason, conspiracy against the crown, attempted seizure of the royal heir. His estates were stripped. His military rank dissolved. His remaining forces were placed under temporary council control. Vesper stood apart from him when the verdict was read. Her Luna claim had already been voided. Then came her own judgment. Political manipulation, participation in destabilizing Crown Fang, concealment of Garrick's plan. Her properties were frozen. She was barred from every royal court under council law. Ironvale refused to receive her. For the first time, Vesper had no father, no title, and no powerful man to stand beside. She looked at Mira once. Mira did not smile. There was no victory in watching another woman become disposable. Only consequence. Then Elder Reed turned to Darius. "Alpha King Darius Vane." Darius stepped forward. The great hall seemed to tighten. "You violated the royal mate oath during the protected final month of a royal pregnancy. Your judgment enabled an active conspiracy to penetrate the crown. Your actions contributed to the collapse of multiple supply protections." Darius said nothing. The council calls a vote of confidence. One by one, the 16-pack representatives stood. 9 voted against him, then 11, then 13. Darius's reign ended without a battle. He removed the royal signet from his hand and placed it on the council table. For the first time since Mira had known him, he looked smaller than the throne behind him. After the chamber emptied, he asked for one final conversation. Mira allowed it. Public courtyard. Lucian and 2 Covenant guards remained at a respectful distance. Darius looked at Elias first, then at Heir. "I know I don't deserve another chance." Mira said nothing. He swallowed. "But I need you to know I would spend the rest of my life earning one." "You should spend the rest of your life becoming better anyway." Hope flickered painfully in his face. Mira stopped it before it could grow. "But you will not become my husband again." His jaw tightened. "Mira." "No." She did not raise her voice. "I can stop hating what happened without pretending it did not happen." Darius looked down. "And Elias? His life will be decided by what keeps him safe, not by your regret." He nodded once. It looked like surrender. Years passed. Greyhaven changed. So did Mira. She became Covenant Regent after reorganizing the healer network, stabilizing 3 border agreements, and surviving enough council arguments to make Lucian complain that she enjoyed proving him wrong. "I do not enjoy it," she told him once. "You smile every time. That is relief. Cruel relief." Elias grew strong, curious, stubborn. He learned to run before he learned caution. Lucian never asked him to call him father, never corrected him, never claimed a place that had not been offered. That was why, one winter morning, Elias did it on his own. "Dad, watch." Lucian froze. Mira heard it from across the courtyard. Neither adult spoke for several seconds. Elias, unimpressed by the importance of his own words, jumped from a low wall and landed badly. Lucian caught him. Mira laughed. Years after leaving Crownspire, she chose Lucian. Not during a crisis. Not because she needed protection. During an ordinary evening in Greyhaven, Elias carried the new Luna ring during the bonding ceremony. No crown fang crest. No van ename. When Lucien knelt, Mira made him wait just long enough to annoy him. Then she gave him her hand. Far away, Darius received the ceremony notice at a small estate beyond the former royal grounds. His home had no throne room, no nursery, no council. The old royal mate seal still rested in a wooden box on his desk. For years, he had believed Mira might someday return for it. That evening, he finally understood. She had never forgotten it. She had left it behind on purpose. He sat beside the window as distant Covenant bells carried through the valley. Somewhere beyond those hills, Elias was growing into a boy whose memories did not include Darius teaching him to walk, helping him through his first shift, or standing beside his bed after nightmares. Those moments belonged to other people now, people who had stayed. Darius closed his hand around the old seal. Once, he had said, "I choose her." Years later, Mira had made her own choice, and it was never him. So this is where Mira's story closes. If you're still here with me, ask yourself one quiet question. How much pain should a person endure before choosing their own dignity? Mira was betrayed at the moment she was most vulnerable. She was carrying a child, building a future, trusting a man who had already stepped outside that future. She hurt deeply, but she did not beg. She did not compete for a place in someone's heart. She left, protected her son, and slowly learned that being rejected by someone else did not mean she had to reject herself. That may be the strongest lesson in her story. We cannot control who lies to us, who betrays us, or who chooses badly. We can control what access they keep afterward. And yes, life has a strange sense of humor. Darius had a kingdom and still managed to lose the one woman holding half of it together. Mira did not need revenge to win. She simply stopped rescuing the people who hurt her from the consequences of their own choices. If you believe dignity matters more than begging for love, comment just one word, dignity, and if Mira's story stayed with you, you can like, share, and subscribe for more stories like this. Dedict logo.